Hey guys, this is my interview with Rob Greenfield. Right off the bat, if you're squirmish with animals being killed, do not watch this video. If you got kids, this video is probably not the best for them if you're squirmish or you don't want your kids to see that kind of thing. Full disclaimer, Rob catches a squirrel in this video, so I want to say that right off the bat. Hey guys, I'm here in Orlando, Florida, and I'm actually just like a couple blocks from the East End Market. You might have saw the video I did with them a week or so ago, and I'm here at Rob Greenfield's house, and you guys might be familiar with Rob Greenfield or you might not be, but he is a really interesting guy that has pretty much dedicated his life to finding ways to live sustainably, and in many different ways, like the products that he consumes, the food he eats, the things that he owns. He's a super minimalist, and I was talking with John Reif, the founder of the East End Market, the other day, and we were kind of talking about Rob before I got here, and he was saying, you know, Rob's kind of like a human experiment. He's experimenting with different ways of being, and he's pushing the boundaries of what is possible, and it's really cool because I think he's kind of a thought leader in that way, as he's trying all these things, and he's pushing the threshold for people like us who wanted to see what's possible, and we might be inspired by little things here and there, and you might say after this interview with Rob, like, oh, there's no way I could live like that, or that's not for everybody, and maybe that's right, but don't think about it that way. Think about what are little things that you can take away that are interesting. And so one thing Rob is doing this year that he's starting is he's going to be growing and foraging 100% of his own food. So it's extremely ambitious, and it is something that requires a lot of preparation and knowledge, and he's kind of had a journey with all this too, to figure out like what can you grow, what works here and there, and how do you do all this. And so we're gonna go back here, meet Rob, and sit down and have a little chat with him about all of this. There he is.
Hello, hello.
How you doing?
Hug through the camera?
Yeah, we sure can.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so this is the humble abode.
This is the humble abode. I try to keep it pretty humble.
Yeah, so this is the tiny house?
Yeah, just finished building it. In fact, you're pretty much the first person here with a camera. This is really the beginning
honored.
of it.
Yeah. Maybe let's have a little tour before we start our interview.
Yeah, it's 100 square feet, so, you know, 10 by 10. What's that, about 10 square meters? And pretty small. You can see really the whole house centers around food. Over here is my Seminole pumpkin stash. And then, you know, this is my deep chest freezer for storing lots and lots of food. That can store about, what, 300 pounds of food in it or something like that. And then making my own vinegars and things like that. So the reason I need a house even this big, it really comes down to the growing and foraging all of my food. But yeah, pretty simple, pretty small place. It was built with about 99% secondhand materials, and so far about $1,500 is trying to keep it under $1,500. And there's a few, it's not quite done, but it's getting pretty close to done. Got my books here.
Aha, I recognize that book.
Urban Farmer.
A few other new society greats in there as well.
Yeah. Yep, this is the little library. I made this so that other people could come and check these books out and use them as a resource, and then also so that I could learn, because I'm, you know, still somewhat of a newbie when it comes to growing food. So the house is small on the inside, but outside is where I live most of my life. This is the outdoor kitchen. All of my water comes from harvesting rainwater, so this is the filter. Have a little outdoor kitchen or sink. The water goes down, and then that's used to grow food with, gray water. I'm switching over to all alternative energy. This is a solar oven, and then I've got a biogas stove for turning food waste into gas. Back here, also more rainwater harvesting that comes just right off of my roof. This is 110 gallons, but I've got another 500 gallons off of the house over there. And then this is the compost toilet here, number 1. Number 2 is used to make humanure for fruit trees. Number 1 is just a great fertilizer that can be used for mostly, not like low-lying things like kale, but more like shrubs and things like that.
We'll be back with Rob in just a minute. Today's video is brought to you guys by paperpot.co. That's a company that I co-own with my good friend Diego Fuder. We started with the paperpot transplanter, the tool that has become now world famous. We now sell a variety of other different types of tools. We're trying to focus on tools that solve big problems. So we're selling the Jang seeder. We helped innovate the JP5, which is a 5-row, multi-row seeder for high density salad greens for market gardens. We've now got the Meadow Creature broad fork, one of the strongest broad forks in the industry. In fact, I think it is the strongest broad fork in the industry. And a variety of other new tools. We're innovating and inventing new stuff. You can expect more things to come from us at paperpot.co. Let's get back to the interview.
Over here's the home biogas. So food waste goes in, and then methane gas comes out for cooking. And in the back, liquid fertilizer comes out as well. That's kind of a byproduct that is really great. Behind me is bananas. One of the blessings of living in Florida. Fertilizer just goes, and hopefully I'll have bananas. Not this year, but next year. And over here, I do a lot of foraging, just drying out some hickory nuts. This I'll use to make nut milk, and then acorns for making acorn flour. And then over here is 2 of my bee colonies. I have another 2 at another house, and this is my main staple for a sugar source. I've got 50 pounds of honey waiting to be harvested right now at the other place.
So this is basically, this is it, like this is your homestead, besides from the other front yard gardens or yard gardens you're using. This is it.
Yeah, I like to keep it pretty simple and small here because that actually forces me to go out into the community. I find that having a big house and everything you need, it's easy to just never leave, especially when you can just buy things online and have them sent to you. So I intentionally keep things small, and I don't grow most of my food here so that it actually keeps me out in the community, getting on my bike, getting active, and not being a homebody. I like to be a home... Whoa!
Did he sting you?
It didn't sting me, but it warned me. It bumped me. I don't know why. I mean,
well, you were right in the shot.
Yeah.
You never want to be in that. See how they all go out like that? The one thing I've learned about bees.
Also, these are all rescue bees, so they're not like your super docile.
They're not
bees
domesticated.
That you buy.
Yeah.
I go out with a bee rescuer, and all of my bees, we've actually broken down brick walls to get them out, rescue them, and then put them here. So most of them are, usually you'll end up with slightly more aggressive bees, but they also tend to be much more catered to the environment and able to handle things better than more domesticated.
So on Sunday, Rob is embarking on a grow and forage everything diet.
For an entire year.
For an entire year. And I assume you're gonna blog and vlog about it. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, so I've traveled around a lot of the world and met a lot of people and talked to a lot of people, and I have personally still never found a person who grows and forages 100% of their food.
Me neither.
No?
No.
And I know that there's some people out there, but the reality is our globalized, industrialized food system has reached all the farthest corners of the world.
Yes.
And convenience has taken over, and with convenience taking over, that's the destruction of so much of the earth, so much of what we love. And so part of it's just the experiment. Is it possible to, I know it's possible. People have done it for the most part for our entire existence.
And there's native communities still around the world that do, but they're not in the West and they're not vlogging.
So the question is it possible in our society?
Yes.
In a Western society, that is one of the things, is it possible? And then at the same time, it's about a deep immersion in food, having to understand everything that goes into my body and either grow it or find it in nature. It's just, what I find is the more that I remove convenience from my life, the more I start to understand life, because I have to understand it, otherwise I don't have food.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, I mean, right into that, like, let's talk about some of the food. Like when we first came in, you showed us you got some honeybees for your sugar. You grew a bunch of squash that's like a high calorie type thing. Like what about proteins? What about more of the complex carbohydrates? I'm not an expert in diet, but what about, have you, like, so tell us, like, what are you growing and what are you going to be foraging and eating?
Yeah. So for carbs, which, you know, that's the thing that I feel like most homesteaders and, you know, people trying to live self-sufficiently, that's probably the hardest thing, is getting the calories.
Yeah.
It's much easier to get your greens and your nutrients, but the calories, the staple crops, is what is the hard part.
Big time.
So for me, I have a lot of yucca or cassava. I've got about 80 planted throughout the neighborhood.
Okay.
Each one can yield about 5 pounds of, or it can be way more. But so, I don't know, I might have a bank of hundreds of pounds of yucca or cassava in the ground. A lot of sweet potato. I have multiple patches of sweet potato.
There was one up front here, wasn't there? Yeah.
Big patch there.
Yeah.
But one of the real big things is, and then I've got about 300 pounds of Seminole pumpkin, which is like a butternut squash. But one of the things that I'm really excited about is the wild yam that grows here. Dioscorea alata is what it's called, and they can grow up to 160 pounds each. I'm 150-ish.
Wow.
So there's yams in the ground that weigh me. That's like 3 months of dinner from one yam.
I think I've seen photos of people with put this in a wheelbarrow or something. Yeah. Wow.
So that, and I found a spot just next to one of the golf courses off the side. There's this little valley, and I think there's 1,000 pounds of yam in the ground there. I'm guessing, just from the little bit of digging around I did.
Wow.
I also found an abandoned little property not far from here that's got a whole forest of cassava just along the whole back of it.
Yeah.
It could be 1,000 pounds of calories sitting there too.
So I remember seeing some videos where you were showing, I saw a video with you and Chris Castro. You were showing how to dumpster dive. Yeah. So that's not in the mix here.
No dumpster diving. For anybody who knows me, they're assuming growing and foraging all my food means dumpster diving still.
Yeah, no.
No dumpster diving. I can dumpster dive to turn that into compost to nourish the soil.
Sure.
But I can't eat anything from a dumpster for the entire year.
So what do you reckon is the amount of square footage and land you're going to need to grow for yourself? Have you kind of thought that through?
Yeah, and you know, because that's one of those basic central questions of, is this sustainable for someone to do? How much land does it actually take?
Right.
And the tricky thing about that is, when you're asking about the sustainability aspect, if it was a lawn that was going to waste and they were using chemicals and water on it, and then you start growing food there and you use the same amount of water and no chemicals, is that land used in the sense that it was in use and you changed the use? Now, another example is if I was to catch lionfish. You could say I need that whole land of the ocean, but lionfish are highly invasive and you're actually helping by removing them.
Right.
So are you using that land?
Yeah.
So it's a tough way to really calculate how much land that I'm using. As far as growing space, I have four plots. One is probably 50 feet by 40 feet. So that's my biggest garden, is 2,000 square feet. I might have 5,000 square feet of active gardening space.
Okay.
What I have gathered, most land-intensive space is creating protein.
Yes.
And so most of my protein is coming from nature. But again, it's like, for example, we got some iguanas the other day, highly invasive. Are you using that land or are you actually helping that land?
So, you ate the iguanas?
Yeah, we ate some iguanas.
How does that taste?
I find most meats to taste pretty much
the same.
Similar.
Really?
I mean, similar.
Yeah.
But iguana was basically like, at one moment it tasted chickeny, at another moment it tasted fishy, at another moment it tasted like kind of alligator-ish. Had a lot of different complex, different flavors depending on the bite.
Wow. So we got a little squirrel coming along here. Is that where's your trap?
Right below.
Is that it right there?
It's actually looking at the trap.
Oh my.
Are we gonna
God.
see my first squirrel get trapped on video?
Doesn't seem to be triggering that trap.
No, I'm new to this. I just got those used online, and there must be a way to make it more sensitive. And
wow.
You know, I was vegan for 2 years or so.
Oh yeah, I was too. I was
And
vegetarian for 16 years.
16 years.
Yeah.
And so, you know, talking about this on camera, I've never trapped a squirrel before. This would be the first squirrel I've ever trapped if this trap goes off. And it's so, you know, it's delicate to talk about this because there's a lot of people
who would be super offended and pissed off. Yeah.
But you know, I look at things not from the, you know, from the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Sure, meat can be the least sustainable form of food
In an industrial
industrialized,
sense, of
globalized
course.
sense.
Yeah.
But as far as these squirrels that have been basically fed off my sunflowers that they keep. Oh my God.
Oh.
Rob Greenfield has just caught a squirrel. I don't think we're going to show Rob butchering this thing up
Yeah.
and eating it today, but damn.
Wow. Well, the good news is it died in
Relatively quick.
15 seconds, maybe?
Yeah, yeah,
Probably a lot quicker than if a hawk grabbed it.
absolutely.
You know, that was pretty quick. Kind of a weird feeling. I mean, I've fished a lot, but
Yeah.
and I've cleaned a couple of chickens on farms, but yeah, this is one of the realities of life. Things are dying whether we realize it or not. You know, when we're farming, things are dying. Veganic, you know, even if we're living a vegan life in the city, animals are dying somewhere on our behalf.
Every farm kills animals.
Yeah, no matter.
And those animals go after that produce, and the only way to save it is to trap.
Yeah.
So
that's one of the, you know, really interesting things is the more and more I got connected with food, the more I realized, sure, veganism is great in many ways, but it doesn't portray the whole bigger picture.
it doesn't. No.
You know, if you're living in the city, completely dependent upon a, you know, industrialized, globalized food system, that's one thing, but even then, the animals are dying because of fossil fuel usage and everything that goes into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, this seems like, you know, if you feel it.
Yeah.
And it seems worse, but looking at the bigger picture, I really don't think it is. In fact, I think that sometimes by taking life yourself, you may actually be taking less life as someone who eats a vegan diet.
Or a heavily agricultural based diet.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do with this thing right now?
Well, I mean, we were kind of going through an interview, but I guess I should maybe deal with this.
Oh my God.
So yeah, we just we caught a squirrel, and so we're not going to put any more of that in this video. Rob, you still got to figure that out. Like this is all new. Like you're figuring these things out.
I'm definitely figuring these things out. Like I feel right now, having killed a squirrel, and you know, morally, ethically, logistically, realistically, I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
But I feel.
No, I feel it too.
something.
Like I know what you mean. Like
Squirrels
I'm not a vegetarian, but I don't know if I have the stomach to like go through and kill an animal and butcher it all up. Like I've seen it, but it's just,
Yeah, you know, and some, so you know, the thing, like one thing about veganism, you know, some would jump on that and say, well, you feel it, therefore it's wrong.
Yeah.
But I know that's not it. You
No.
can feel a lot of things that are right and have a pit in your stomach.
You know, I think one of the greatest things that I've pulled out of Canadian and Native American culture is the sense of gratitude and the spirituality that goes with the sacrifice that animals make. And I've seen how when First Nations people in Canada hunt, they thank the animal. They thank the spirit of that animal.
Yeah.
And I think there's, you know, you can take from that what you will, but there's something there.
There is, and honestly, the people that I meet that are the most connected with the land and taking care of the land the most are people who are a part of that life cycle.
Yeah.
time and time again.
Yeah.
So the idea is to force myself to live simply, because I am in a situation where I could choose to make a lot of money and then probably buy a lot of stuff and do a lot of things that cause negative impact, which is not what I want to do. I want to live really simply. So what I've done is committed that 100% of my media income, I've done 2 TV shows on Discovery Channel, my book, all media income goes directly to nonprofit. So it goes right into my contract that I don't touch a penny of it.
Wow.
And so the little bit of money that I do make is from public speaking, pretty much. And this year I made $8,000. Last year it was $5,000. I found $5,000 to be a little bit too little. It was a bit of a struggle. So now it's back up to, you know, the federal poverty threshold. I'm not trying to live in poverty. It's just a guideline.
That's the guideline, yeah.
Which, so, you know, it's about $11,000, and this year I made $8,000 and was very comfortable. I'm comfortable because I've been demonetizing my life for the last 7 years. I've learned how a human being can meet their needs and their desires without money. So if I had jumped into this overnight, no, I couldn't have done it.
No.
It's 7 years of practicing a demonetized way of life.
I think that's a great way to wrap it up. So thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, brother.
It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.
It's been awesome, and I'll circle back next time I come into Orlando. But I really I'm gonna check in, and I'm gonna check in like 6 months or something,
We'll do it.
and see. Maybe I'll be back again to do another workshop here. So it would be really great to check in on how the whole experience is going. So how can people follow you? What's the best way for people to follow your journey, get your book, follow you on social media?
Yeah. My website's robgreenfield.org, and then if you just type in my name onto Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, those are the social medias that I use. You can find me on any of those. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll leave all those links below for you guys to check out, and follow Rob on his journey, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. See you, everyone.